So let's continue with the lesson 3, which is the commentary materials under the researching information relevant to tour itinerary. Take note of the technical terms under this lesson. Code switching. This is the manner of communicating where words in different languages are alternately used in one sentence. Factual commentaries. Truthful and accurate explanations uttered during a tour, most especially when describing a place and sharing history and events. Proactive. This is being practical or positive way of thinking and acting. Trivia. These are interesting details that is normally shared during tours that may or may not be planned or scripted. The tour guides must be knowledgeable and factual. Their facts must also be delivered in a very interesting and creative manner. Tourists will know if the tour guide is not prepared and his or her commentaries are memorized. And you have to take note that all information being shared must be truthful and appropriate, yet of course pleasing to the ear. All data must be carefully selected. So the following are just some sources of commentary materials that you have to take note. First one is the primary data. Primary data are the first-hand experiences that are ideal primary source of information. It is best to share something that has been personally experienced. Another is the secondary information. The secondary information is normally taken from reading books, the internet, the magazines, and other reference materials. At times, this information comes from those who experience the event firsthand. Another is the technical data. This includes the expert knowledge taken from the further education or trainings of the guide. Licensed and DOT accredited tour guides who constantly attend seminars and trainings have more substantial things to include in their commentaries. So it's important that you should also attend seminars and other related trainings. Also, current events. These are great sources of information where commentaries can be based from. This can be taken from the different newspaper, internet, and electronic media sources. Also the news reports. Some examples of this one are the weather report, the road and traffic updates, and events like parades and strikes. And the last one is the trivias. These are interesting tidbits of almost anything. This may interest and amuse tourists when these are included in the commentaries. It is important that tour guides keep their commentaries fresh all the time because constant repetition of information can actually cause boredom and may annoy some of the tourists. So let's see some of the following different types of commentaries that are used in all phases of the tour. So the first one is the required commentary. This includes the welcome remarks, the introduction of yourself, and also the introduction of the driver, giving some reminders and a brief description of the tour, the weather, and other important suggestions in preparation for the tour. So let's see some examples in here. This is an example of the required commentary. Good morning, everyone. My name is Remy, and this is our bus driver, Coach Nelson. On behalf of Explorers Travel and Tours, I would like to welcome you all to Basco Batanes. The bus ride to your hotel will take about 20 minutes. I promise you a charming panoramic view of Batanes, even in a short span of time. Before we leave, may I ask if your entire luggage are already inside the bus? Alright, please remain seated until we reach our hotel, Basco Seaside Hotel. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., we shall start our tour for the whole Batan Island. Please make sure that you have your breakfast before that time and we shall meet at the lobby. We have several destinations to visit. The weather is about 32 degrees Celsius, but it can get windy. I suggest that you wear comfortable clothes and a light jacket just in case it gets cloudy in the afternoon. The second type of commentary is informative commentary. This includes describing the city, the designated stops, other points of interest, and even giving advice to tourists as they go along the tour. Let's see an example. Batanes is one of the most beautiful places in the Philippines, located in the northern part of Luzon. It has 3 islands. We are in Basco, its capital. Well, you see, we are proud of spectacular sights in here. This is a good place for photography. Has anyone seen the movie of Don Zulueta and Richard Gomez? Entitled, Hihintayin Kita sa Langit? It was actually filmed in here. We are now at our first destination, Mount Carmel Chapel. What do you notice? Yes, the chapel is modeled after a traditional Ivatan house made of stone. By the way, the locals of Batanes are called Ivatans. This chapel is a showcase of building traditions. This is also called Tukon Chapel. Tukon means mountain in the Ivatan language. This chapel sits on a foothill. It rests in the shadow of Mount Iraya, and from this view, you will see to your right the West Philippine Sea going towards the Pacific Ocean. At this point, you can see the calm waves. I hope it remains like that while you guys are here. Another type is the requested commentary. This is given when the tourist asks some questions. Remember, as a tour guide, you have to be very tactful when answering questions. This is an example if a tourist asks a question. You can answer like this. That is a very interesting question, ma'am, sir. Although Batanes is an amazing destination, many tourists are not able to visit us because in the past, there was only one airline, the Skyjet, that is used to fly to Basco. With only one flight, airfare became so very expensive. It is a good thing that Philippine Airlines now brings passengers to our place so they can see the beauty of Batanes. Tourists are now coming to visit us and air tickets prices are slightly lower. And the last type of commentary is optional commentary. This is a part of the fun when giving commentaries because this may include the anecdotes, stories, legends, simple trivias, and also you can introduce new games. They are supposed to make the tour fun and amusing, so most of these remarks are spontaneous and impromptu. As mentioned earlier, tour guides deliver varied forms of commentaries. More often than not, all of them are used in every tour. However, there's a sequence that should be followed. We call this the components of commentaries because certain progressions have to be done as tour guides in delivering the commentaries. The first component is the introduction. This is done during the start of a tour to get the attention of the guest in a calm and educated manner. Introductions during the tour, like a walking tour, getting the attention of a big group is quite different as tour guides may have to increase the volume of their voice. And they'll verbally call their attention by saying, may I have your attention please? And try to avoid saying, excuse me, while calling their attention. Great tour guides make an effort to get to know their guests or their tourists. Although, if this is not possible, it is better to address them as Sir, Ma'am, or Madam. better yet with their names. It is best to call them using their last names, as in, for example, Mrs. Garcia or Mr. Garcia. May I have your attention, please? Some tour guides use other communication tool like a bell or a whistle to get the group's attention. If tour guide sees that the majority have focused their attention to them, then they may already start with the commentaries. The second component of commentaries is the body of the commentary. Commentaries need to be pleasant yet concisely descriptive. Remember that they are already seeing the view of the place. They are already witnessing the actual work of art. Emphasizing on the vital points such as history, geography, culture, and the rest of its fine points are very important. A descriptive narration about the place usually answers the questions what, where, when, why, and how. All these are essential to tackle in the body of the commentary. When speaking also, use the correct choice of words and clearly enunciation of words. There is no need to impress the tourist with the way you speak. English is a universal language and generally used in tour guiding. However, English is delivered in different intonations. For example, Singaporeans carry a certain tone when they speak in English. They speak Singlish. Yet, the tourists generally understand. Filipinos speak the Filipino English manner. The use of jargons and slang must be avoided. Always remember that. Furthermore, avoid code switching, where some English and Filipino words are used alternately in one sentence. That is an example of code switching. You have to avoid that. It is best to keep sentences in pure English even if you carry your own local accent. Remember that commentaries are a great source of information, therefore, never rush while talking. Always be sensitive towards those who cannot understand the language that you are using. Some statements may be better off accompanied with non-verbal cues. Another component is feedbacking. Having common sense is an essential element that tour guides need to have. This is important in evaluating feedback or reactions from tourists. Because remember, no matter how well prepared the commentaries are, tour guides may sometimes receive unpleasant remarks. That it's important that you shouldn't react right away, but instead, stay proactive. They cannot expect that everyone listening to them will believe, agree, and like what is being explained, especially if it has something to do with changes in the itinerary and other events causing the discomfort of your tourist. You have to be ready with acceptable explanations. But of course, sometimes feedback also brings appreciation, and there is no better way to respond to it than saying a simple thank you. Summaries are always short and important facts are reiterated but no longer described lengthily. This part is normally brief. It involves emphasizing the important matters, and there is no need to explain what have been previously explained. Good sense and sound judgment will dictate if there is a need to highlight some issues. Another component is the reminders. Tour guides show genuine concern towards their guests by giving them reminders and warnings. So, some reminders can be given at any time they are needed. Just for example, if the tourists are going to a crowded place, it is best to remind them to be watchful of their belongings. Some warnings are just needed at the very moment it is needed. Like, for example, to be cautious of the slippery floor that might cause them to slip. However, most reminders are normally done towards the end, when tour guides have done their in explaining and educating tourists. Reminders involve mentioning of the next scheduled activities and important things to remember for the succeeding events that is indicated in your tour schedule or your itinerary. An example is when tour guides remind their tourists that no food and drinks are allowed inside the museum during the visit of the museum. The last component is saying thank you and goodbye. Any professional knows how to say thank you even if snide remarks have been said. You still have to say thank you for the opportunity to share and the patience and understanding, and most of all for the company. Goodbyes also must be pleasant too. It is important to bid goodbye to your tourists properly. The last lesson under the Core Competency 1 is the commentary based from gathered information. Again, take note of the technical terms: anecdote, story or tale shared to others which may not be true; legend, an enchanting story or fairy tale that may be invented; nonverbal cues, a set of movements of the body that convey meaning; stimulate curiosity. This is being able to engage someone and allow him or her to think; theme, a topic that is the focus of the whole subject matter. In the previous lessons, we were able to discuss the different types of commentaries and have different components too. It is also true that giving commentaries must follow a certain pattern and must be selected from different sources. So having considered all these features, the next step is to organize and form a tour script. A tour script is also known as a tour commentary. The script serves as a lead for the tour guide follow during the delivery of the commentary. So this script should have an organized and compelling development. With all these features of the commentaries, the truth behind that its delivery must be truly engaging. It must be delivered in exciting ways so that the tourist will listen to you. When they listen, there is learning involved. Traveling is a fun-filled learning experience. So in order to achieve this, many experienced tour guides believe in the power of a story. This simply means that it is good to adopt the tell a story manner of doing commentaries. So it's like you're just telling a story. While it is true that the tour guides tell facts, they should narrate it in a way that is not boring. Tourists travel to have fun. They travel to experience a new place, and at the same time, they travel to learn about it. So, one important part of telling stories is not to overwhelm them with facts and figures. You're going to tell them of the dates, the seasons, occasions, and events. These are important, but they must also be conveyed in a very academic way. Tourists would also like a series of dates or occasions, and it is best that they become a part of a story. So in order to make it more interesting, it is best to formulate a story around it. Stories do not have to be long. Instead, it must be able to capture the people's attention and imagination. The following are just some tips about the power of a story. Aspiring tour guides and even experienced ones can learn from these pointers. It is best that they apply these tips when doing commentaries. So the first one, make sure that stories have beginnings, middle story, and endings. Meaning, commentaries need to be patterned like a story. While narrating the beginning, it needs to captivate the interest of the audience or your tourist. Tour guides should remember that the story they share is worth remembering. It must be something that they can be proud to say, "Ah, I know the story behind that building," or "Ah, I know the story how this island got its name." Travelers like sharing stories too about their trips when they get back home. When they can do this, it means that the tour guide has done a great job in narrating the history. The tourist remembers it, and surely it made an impact on the tourist. In the middle part of the story, the audience is being led to experience the event. It is important to take them on a journey. One cannot do this if facts and figures are enumerated. You should also be creative in narrating. Use the right choice of words and change your tones if necessary. Also, you can use nonverbal cues every now and then, but do not overdo it. Facial expressions also can help convey emotions. And then the ending the story is simply keeping some parts left to their imagination, meaning do not complete the story. A story works best when the listeners make remarks or ask questions. This means that the story sparks some interest in them. The second one is collect stories. As mentioned, destinations have a story. Some may be based on facts, while others come in forms of a legend or anecdotes. So, great tour guides, great tour guides collect stories and keep them, and then you can actually include this one in delivering your commentaries. Another, create a theme. Tour guides also should prepare beforehand. With the given itinerary, they will know the profile of the guest. So if the tourists are the adventurous type, then pattern your commentaries or stories in a daring manner or a courageous manner. Create a theme for the tour, and activities must revolve around the theme so that you can create a story. And the last one, stimulate curiosity. When doing commentaries and doing it in a storytelling manner, it is best to encourage your tourists to think. You may ask questions like, would you have done? Or, what do you think happened after? Because a great part of this is also getting them excited for the next event. So there may be some more other important ideas to prompt tour guides to do commentaries by storytelling, but the mentioned pointers will help create engagement among your tourists. For tour guides, one of the most fulfilling goals is to be able to connect with your tourists. Definitely, this is achieved when interesting stories to share. After much scribbling, the next step is to narrate the formulated tour commentary or tour script.